Okay, we are on Maaser Sheni, Perek Bet, Mishnah Daled, fourth Mishnah in the second chapter of Maaser Sheni. So 2 Mishnayot ago, we learned that Rabbi Shimon said you wouldn't do sicha of shemen. Why? Because in some ways, Maaser Sheni is more chamor than Terumah. One way we learned about was tiltam with fenugreek. But in another way, we said that we were more makil on karshinim, which is called vetch or horse bean, than we are about Maaser Sheni. So now our Mishnah is going to tell us in what way are we more makil, in what way are we more machmir, of Maaser Sheni for kashinim, for these horse beans, than we would be than we are for Terumah. So first you have to know, what is this horse bean? So of course I looked for it on Wikipedia. Okay, horse bean is like, there's a million possibilities. They suggest that it's called, there's something called vetch. Did I close it? I think I did close it. Hold on. Beauty of stopping and starting is you can stop and then find what you're looking for. Bitter vetch was one of the first domesticated crops. Okay, by the time of the Central European linear pottery culture, broad bean had been domesticated. It's found all over the place. Okay, and then it's interesting, what it says is, though Bernard of Clairvaux shared bread of vegetable with his monks during the famine of 1124 to 26, eventually the bitter vetch was dropped from human use, sage for crop as a last resort in starvation. So it's not even eventually. In the Gemara, the Mishnah says, this is exactly the point. Karshinim, this bitter bean, this horse bean, okay, einam machal adam ela midochak. You could eat it if you have to. It probably tasted terrible. Okay, bishnot ra'avon, in times of famine, exactly as we saw in Wikipedia. So this idea of karshinim, the vetch, this horse bean, sometimes it had the properties of food, but usually it was treated like animal food. So what do you do? So we normally say the animal feed is not Maaser Sheni, only food. It's nechal adam. So what about karshinim of Maaser Sheni, since it's eaten bedochak, with great difficulty? Says the Mishnah. Karshinim Maaser Sheni. So if you have karshinim of Maaser Sheni, yochlu tzimchonim. You eat them, like we learned before, tzimchonim, when they're soft, when they're green. Because that's when they're edible for people. Okay? And therefore, the Kahati adds, okay? The Kahati adds an important point. We don't feed Maaser Sheni to an animal. Okay, so when it's tzimchonim, when you're karshinei Maaser Sheni, you can't feed it to an animal. But we've learned before, karshinei Terumah, we do feed to an animal. The Mishnah in Terumah says that these horse bean, could feed a Kohen, if he had karshinim, he would feed it to his animal. And that's one way Maaser Sheni is more chamor, because karshinim of Maaser Sheni you could not feed to an animal, but the Kohen could feed his karshinim to his animals. So yochlu simchonim, either when it's simchon, when it is still soft and green. Right? V'nichnesim liYerushalayim, like all fruits or produce of Maaser Sheni, you bring it to Yerushalayim. But v'yotzim, you can also take it out of Yerushalayim. Okay, even though we learned Maaser Sheni nichnas Yerushalayim and yocholim lehotziyam, misham you can't take it out. But karshinim hekelu, with these karshinim, they were more lenient. Chazal were more lenient about karshinim of Maaser Sheni in this case. Okay, the Kahati notes that the reason you were allowed to take them out was lahachshiram la'achila, to prepare them, to grind them into flour, to bake their whatever. Okay, that's one permission. That's when they were permitted to take them out. But you couldn't just take them out. Stop. Yit nitmeu. What if the karshinim became tameh? So therefore, normally you would say you'd be podeh. You would redeem it. Rabbi Tar, but what would you redeem if normally food of Maaser Sheni, okay, we normally are podeh, even in Yerushalayim. Now, if I take fruit to Yerushalayim, then I have to eat it there. But if it became tameh in Yerushalayim, then we say we're podeh like other Maaser Sheni. So would we be podeh the karshinim as well? Rabbi Tarfon Omer, yitchalku le'isot. Rabbi Tarfon says, no, you can divide it into bundles that are smaller than 1 kibetza. 1 kibetza is not metameh. And the smaller kibetza amount, then you put it into the doughs. So therefore it's not metameh the food. Okay, that's one way of not losing it. You don't have to be mevatel. The Chachamim say yipaduna. You should redeem it. Let's look at the Bartuner for a second. If my oranges become tamei, I redeem them. I transfer them to money. Aval karshinim, these karshinim, this vetch horse bean, they're not human food. Ein poninoto. You don't redeem it. Okay. The Savar Rabbi Tarfon ein ponin kachim lachilam laklavim. The Rabbi Tarfon says you don't redeem kachim that are tamei in order to feed them to the dogs, that you can't actually consume. Hilkach, therefore, what should you do? If you have dough from flour of Maaser Sheni, you should divide it up. And you put into every dough from these horse bean flour, less than a kibetza. דאוכל פחות מקבצה, אינו לא מטמא לאחרים, ולא מאחרים ולא מטמא לאחרים. It's not mitameh, it doesn't become tameh, and it's not mitameh. And that's one way to eat it. We've learned this trick before in Trumot. We have the trick of dividing into less than a kibetza. What if I have karshinim shel truma, vishel truma? If I have karshinim of truma, so how do I have to treat it? Do I have to treat it like food and treat it like truma tehora, or do I treat it like animal food and I don't have to treat it like truma tehora? We'll see. Beit Shammai omrim shorin v'shafin v'tahara. Shorin means if I soaked it in water. Well, I guess one of the ways that they would treat it was to be soaking it in water. V'shafin, shafin also, it's a machlokah what it means. Some say shafin means to rub it, to get off the outside shell, and others say they would rub it on their bodies for whatever reason. So whatever you do, shorin v'shafin, you do those things. V'tahara, meaning you have to wash netilat yadayim before, like it's regular truma. Umachilin betuma. When you feed it to your animal, then you don't have to do netilat yadayim to feed your animals their animal food. If you're a Kohen, obviously, only the Kohen can do it. But Beit Hillel says, no, sharin b'tahara. If you're soaking it in water, you have to wash. V'shafin umachilin betuma. But rubbing it or feeding it to your animals is tuma. Shammai says, yochalut tzarid. Tzarid means when it is dry. After it's already become, okay. Meaning, by the Kati says, you shouldn't put them in water at all. Okay? So it's not mukhshar lekabel tuma. Whereas, as we saw, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel says you can't. Tzarid means dry, totally dry. Rabbi Akiva says, no, kol ma'aseim betuma. Everything you do with these karshinim, you can do betuma. You don't have to wash until you die, because the vast majority of the time is considered animal food. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, you can reach me at this email address. I've read it 1,000,000 times. I'm dedicated to learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.